college review. Hi everyone. I'm doing this again. Oh shit. Fuck's sake. Hi everyone. I'm doing this shit again. That's really cool. I'm talking to you on a camera about my life experiences because I know you all care so much about those. Last time I did this, I was a tiny little boy of 16 years, and I complained for like 25 minutes about my high school experience, which was god awful, but it had like no flow or anything. I was just kind of rambling for 25 minutes. I forgot to talk about half of what I wanted to talk about, but people seem to like that video, or at least people from my high school who watched that video seem to like that video. So I'm gonna do that again, but for my college experience. So the 5 people who I know at college can watch this and give it a thumbs up. So yeah, this is going to be unscripted mostly. I have written a very crude notes cross script thing because I've already had to film this once and it was a complete mess where I just didn't really say anything for an hour and a half and the camera battery ran out and I wanted to cry, and then when I imported the footage it was out of focus. I've also got a green screen behind me on my CRT so I can display funny moments. Because if you remember in the school review, I did that. It's a callback. That's what it is. It's a callback. I'm gonna run out of squash within 2 minutes. Before we start, though, I do want to add a little addendum. Amendment. I don't fucking know. You know the word. You know the word. I wanted to add one of those to the end of school review because there was one thing that I couldn't talk about because it hadn't happened yet, but I think it was like a nice little cherry on top to the end of my terrible high school experience that I just wanted to share. So as we all know, I'm a genius. Amendment. So I was one of the students who, when the GCSE results got announced, was asked to come take pictures. Oh, can you please be in our promotional material? Because we'd really love to show off how fucking lit our school is by showing how good like 4 of our students are. And I was like, yeah. So I went. They took pictures of us like jumping, and they like interviewed us and asked us, oh, what are you doing when you go to college? And I was like, oh, I'm gonna do like media production, mate. And I was like, cool, that was pretty sick. I'm gonna get my face printed on a fucking billboard and hung up in the hall, and then people can draw moustaches on me. And that exact thing happened. I got my ugly mug hung up for everyone to see during those awful assemblies. The issue was they also put like excerpts from my interview right beside it, which, bear in mind, I'd had a whole like conversation with the interviewer about like, oh, what kind of films do you like, and oh, what area of media do you like, and shit like that. They somehow in their infinite wisdom, instead of putting media production, they'd put music production. They put music production. Music production. You got one of the letters right. I didn't do music production. I didn't even do music as a GCSE. I do not have a musical bone in my body. So why they thought music production was correct, I have no idea. And we brought it up to the headmaster, and he was like, oh, that's not very good. And they never fixed it, so that's really cool. Just thought I'd bring that up. That was just a nice little bonus at the end of my high school experience. Really summed up the whole fucking ordeal. But anyway, onto the main event, college. It was way better than high school. It wasn't a complete nightmare. I wasn't bullied horribly. I actually got taught stuff that is valuable to me and isn't just fucking Pythagoras. I don't give a shit about Pythagoras. I don't care. But I actually got, like, taught stuff, and it was valuable, and I enjoyed my time there, but there were still things that were bad. Every good ray of light has a dark side. Is that what they say? But in comparison to high school, it was amazing. It was like a godsend. And I'm in that aspect, I'm pretty hyped to see how much better uni is, because if it continues this pattern, university will be like going to heaven. But something I should clarify, because I imagine there's some people out there who are already confused, especially Americans. College in the UK is not the same as college in the US. University is our equivalent to your college, where we go and we pay obscene amounts of money to be taught nothing. That thing. College is basically just high school part 2, where we just get to specialise and do less subjects, and it's painful if you do A-levels and slightly less painful if you do provisional courses. Oh, fuck it, this is actually hurting holding this. As I've said already, I did a media production course, which was essentially just being handed different topics, like, I don't know, music video or documentary or magazine, being taught some theory about it, and then being told to just, like, go and make something based on the brief we were given. So let's say if it was music video, we'd be taught the basics of music video, we'd be taught to analyse a couple music videos for like 3 weeks, and then for the next 6 weeks, we were just given free rein to do pre-production, film it, edit it. Making a music video is like one part of it, pre-production is another part of it, evaluation is another part of it, pre-learning is another part of it. It's like a whole like training course for one aspect of media every 2 months. It was pretty fun. Bear in mind, media production is not the same as media studies or film studies, which I briefly considered taking before I realised that media production was a thing. And the second I realised that, I chucked film studies in the garbage can where it belongs. The main difference between the two of them is that in the BTech, you get taught like hands-on like experience with cameras and stuff, and you actually learn from experience of like making stuff and like writing up and doing pre-production, you know, how it would work in like the industry, but like baby's first industry. And then in media studies or film studies, you spend 2 years analysing movies from the 50s. No hate to people who did A-levels. I'm sure there are many people who did A-levels and then went on to do a uni course and then went on to be like master filmmakers. But in my opinion, that sort of stuff isn't particularly valuable and it's just kind of a waste of my time. Like, if I've got 2 years where I can have free education and I don't have to pay for it, I might as well use that time wisely and not just do a fucking A-level where I analyse movies that I've never heard of, no one's ever heard of, and I just have to, like, pretend I like them and pretend they're genius. So basically what English literature is. Like, it's really awesome if you want a really sick Letterboxd account, but that's about it. So yeah, I did a BTech, and here's why. BTechs are fucking easy. There were a couple things that made it pretty easy as a course. The main one was the fact that we were, for all the pre-production stuff and the evaluation and even like the theory write-up, we were given like templates to fill in on Google Slides, which I'm under the impression only our college does. I've seen like other work from other BTech students, and it's not like that. They're just given the assignment and just told to go do it. They had like headers to tell us like what to do there, like, oh, I'll do a mood board here, or like do a shot list here, and then underneath that, if it was like a write-up slide, we were like given bullet points of like the stuff we need to talk about, which was really helpful. I would definitely not have wanted to slog through and try and decipher what the brief meant, the exam board brief, because that is written in a fucking foreign language. But also it made it way easier because you didn't really have to use your brain a whole lot. Second thing that made it really easy was the fact that it was just really easy to get max grades. You could get a distinction for sneezing, basically. Case in point, one of my friends just didn't do all the work for one of the units. He just left loads of slides completely blank, and he got a merit. so. And that isn't just not doing the sections that are distinction level, that's just not doing some of the sections completely, and he's still got a merit. That's not how that works. You're meant to get a fail if you don't do all the sections. And the final thing that made the course really easy was that we just weren't given enough work for the amount of time that we were in college. And we weren't even in college every single day. It was just like, what, the equivalent to 3 days a week in the second year? Especially towards the end. Once we were very familiar with the format and able to do like 5 slides in a day, in a lesson even, it became very apparent that the amount of work we were being handed was not enough to sustain the amount of time that we'd been allotted to do it. Like, even if you, like, slacked off and just did fucking Kahoots for 2 hours, you could still easily complete all the slides. We just weren't given enough work. And that isn't the teacher's fault, obviously. That's the exam board's fault. But it's also kind of the teacher's fault because they gave us the Google Slides, and if they didn't give us the Google Slides, it probably would have been harder and we would have had enough work. But I'm not complaining. Kahoots are fun. At the same time, though, there was the occasional unit that was significantly harder than the other ones, and it took us a while to figure out why, and then we realised it was entirely down to which teacher assigned the lesson. Depending on which teacher organised the assignment and the Google Slides, we'd either have incredibly detailed descriptions and bullet points of what we need to write in each thing, or we'd have the mark scheme copy-pasted. Anyone who's tried to read an exam board mark scheme before knows how unbelievably challenging they are to decipher. So just imagine that copy-pasted on every single slide in the notes section, and that's all the guidance we had for those slides. So basically we were just back to working on our own. So that was fun. That was really cool. Thank you, sir. That was really sick. And that idea also applies to the marking as well, because that was all done in college by our 2 teachers. One of the teachers, whenever he was marking, always got it back on time, no matter what. It was dead on like 3 weeks, 4 weeks, which was great. That was awesome. And then the other teacher, when he was marking, took 2 months. Even though he said it would take 4 weeks, it took 2 months. We'd handed in a unit in December, and we were told we'd get it back on like the 10th of January. We didn't get it back till the middle of February. I don't know what the fuck went wrong there, but something clearly did. But ignoring all the issues with marking and like all the slide stuff, we were also taught a bunch of like practical stuff. So we were taught how to use DSLRs, how to use like lights properly, how to like light scenes with like 3-point lighting. We were given access to a bunch of equipment. We even had like a studio that we could mess around in and book out. There was a bunch of cool equipment we could use. At the very end, we even got access to a very, very nice Canon camera, which I did like using a lot. It had a £1,500 lens on it, and when I saw it, I was just like, oh, holy fuck. But yeah, we were taught a fair bit at college, like the sort of stuff you would be taught in like the first year of uni. Got stretched out into like a 2-year long course, even though it was like a year and a half, but we'll get to that. And a lot of that teaching was just through hands-on experience. Like at the start we were taught like all the basics of cameras, but from there it was just like learning from our mistakes and learning how to use it through doing individual units. And that is a nice segue into me talking about the individual units. We did a couple little small ones at the start to get us like, you know, used to using the software and used to using cameras. So at the start we did a very small photography one and photo editing one. I think it was, album cover art. I did the most basic fucking boring shit. I did like a, yeah. Then after that, we did a podcast thing, which wasn't really a podcast. It was just like a audio thing. It was just learning how to use like microphones properly. And then we got onto our first video project, which was a video advert, where we just had to make an advert for like an energy drink that the genius minds over at my college had come up with. No guidance, just make a 30-second long video ad. And I came out with this. I'll probably phase it into the green. Yeah, this. I don't know what I'm doing. I got air. I barely had a clue what I was doing while I was making this. There's a bunch of shots in there that just aren't in focus. It was a big learning experience, just getting to know the how cameras work and how to like, because that was the first time I did like shot lists and stuff, and that was really fun. But I think it came out quite well. It was pretty funny, haha. After that, we did the music video, which was like the first big project we did, and this was a pretty big step up once again, because we were going from like a 30-second long, 1 minute long, tiny little video to like a full music video where everything needs to be synced, everything should be in focus ideally, and I had to do like a massive shot list for it, and it was like the first time I'd filmed in public, because I had to film stuff in public and that was miserable. But yeah, this is probably the project I'm the most proud of. There's still parts of it that I think are shit, but it's like a first like proper film project. I'm really proud of it. It's still probably one of the best things I've ever made. And it's up on YouTube. It's on my second channel. It's been on there for, 2 years now? So if you're interested, watch it, or don't watch it. It's pretty cringe, bro. It's pretty cringe. You want to go? After that was the crime drama. We had to make like an intro, 2-minute long intro sequence and then a title sequence. This was probably the worst project I handed in throughout the entire course. I still got a distinction for it, obviously. When you're working on a very tight deadline and you're having to refilm everything and you're working with actors who can barely emote.
This is the sitting down shot. First take. I didn't do it.
And you're working with a sound system that you haven't been taught properly, it's pretty hard to get decent results. The main problem was continuity. Continuity between shots just wasn't kept, and that was a big lesson for this one. The main problem with continuity wasn't my fault, it was that one of my friends kept fucking moving and doing things that I did not tell him to. Like at one point he just stood up. I didn't want him to stand up. He just stood up because he felt like it, and that ruined the continuity. Thanks, man. That was really cool.
But I'll just keep going.
One long take.
Yeah.
Have you got what I want? Yes.
Yeah.
Have you got what I want?
No. I haven't. I'm not recording, by the way.
After that COVID hit, fast forward to September, and we're back. This time wearing masks and washing our hands. And now we're doing documentary. This one was more independent than the other ones, because for the other free film projects I'd just done, I did them in a group and we all filmed together.
Billy, how's your experience been so far?
Oh, my experience has been great. I just tripped over a bag.
But for this one, I kind of split off from the boys and just did my own shit. I filmed a CRT in a little garage and did like a dolly towards it. Not a dolly, a track towards it. Is it a track? But yeah, it was a documentary about the decline of TV, and I'd like interviewed my funny friends over Discord and was like, so fellas, what do you think about TV? And they were like, well, I watch BBC iPlayer. It was basically just one of these videos. It was basically one of my essay videos, but I handed it in on my course, and I got a distinction for it, so get in! This was also the first time I used After Effects. No, this was the first time I properly used After Effects. I was never taught After Effects. I think I was taught it very, very briefly for like an hour total, but that did not explain it very well. After that, we didn't really do any film units. We just did media-specific units, and they were significantly less interesting for me because I like film. I'm doing a film course next year at university. I don't care about fucking web design. The latest one I did, which was probably the one I had the most fun with, was magazine. When I was a little kid at primary school, I made a magazine for the primary school in Microsoft Publisher, and I did like 10 issues of that. So this was a nice little throwback. Actually using like professional software instead of fucking Microsoft Publisher was cool. Yeah, I did like a gaming magazine because of course I fucking did. I took pictures of my PS5. One of them showed up in the Nintendo video. And I doubt any of you even noticed that I took that picture, so get fucked. Before that, we did an advertising unit, which is probably the most miserable of all of them. I find it fun to like be creative in these kind of courses, and advertising is the one where you have to just talk about how oh, this design decision reflects our customers' interest in our product, and you have to basically explain that for like 50 paragraphs. We were given the option to do a video for this one, but why would you do a video when you could just do a fucking print ad? Like, why put the extra effort in? You're still gonna get a fucking distinction anyway, so what's the point? On the top of all this, we also had Friday sessions at the start of the course that were more independent and disconnected. These Friday sessions were like one-off things where we were given like a tiny mini brief and told to just make something, or we were given like a little tutorial on how to use a specific piece of software. We made some really terrible shit in these ones. We had like a long-running like series, if you can call it that, because one of my friends at the time was really obsessed with PewDiePie, and he thought Bing Bong was the funniest thing on the planet.
Stop! No!
Bing Bong number 1.
So we made these horrible, vile shorts that were like 30 seconds long, where he had like, where me and him fought. And yeah, I don't want to talk about it.
You sly dog.
But yeah, those Friday sessions were fun. We learned a lot that we wouldn't have been taught otherwise if we didn't do those. We did stop doing those after a while though, because the teacher we had for those lessons specifically left. He left the college to become a YouTuber. And on top of that as well, we also had a bunch of other units that were just kind of canned or done differently because of COVID. We had a photography unit that we were about halfway through, and then COVID hit, and we were just due to do the photography bit of that unit, and we couldn't do that obviously because we were stuck at home. So we were just given photography challenges. Ooh, I think it was weekly. We were emailed by our teacher, hey, can you get your phone out and like take like pictures based on like texture as like a theme and send them to me. We also did another unit completely at home. This one was like a full unit that we would have done the exact same in college anyway, but it was a portfolio unit where we had to make a website and make like a reel and shit. But the extent of that was basically just being emailed a Wix link and told to go ham. So again, I wasn't really taught a whole lot for 2 months. On top of that, we were also meant to do 4 exams. We did one of them. We did one exam, and it was the most miserable experience of my fucking life. And I'm very glad we didn't do the 3 other ones, especially because the second one was meant to be basically film studies the exam. So no thank you. I'm very glad I didn't do that.
You've got mail.
Fuck off, Jasper. Hey fellas, you're live on air. You're live on air. Thoughts on college?
I'm on my floor. How can I be on the air?
Fellas, I'm gonna go now. I've got to finish this cool video. Oh, shut up, bitch. You're in it now. What idiots. I should probably talk about COVID now, since that's kind of the big elephant in the room. That kind of affected my college experience in quite a significant way, mainly because I wasn't there for half of it. I was at home playing video games instead of being lectured about cameras or the rule of thirds. So in some ways it was an improvement. It's pretty hard to do a practical course when you can't do the practical part of the course. And with that in mind, my teachers did a pretty good job of working around that. With that not in mind, they fucking failed. I've already mentioned the picture challenges already, but how about pre-learning? That was literally just copy-pasted work that we ended up doing exactly the same in September anyway. I did all of the pre-learning. I had to watch the same documentary twice, because I had to watch it once in pre-learning, and then because it'd been 3 months, I'd forgotten it, so I had to watch it again when we actually did that section of the course, and it was miserable. I wanted to die. It's 4 hours of my life I'm never getting back, and my friend, who didn't watch it once, got a distinction. We also had virtual lessons, obviously, like the rest of the world. We used Microsoft Teams because we're in the fucking Stone Age. But that was just a fun period of history, having to hop onto my computer and sit in a call with my teacher, who sounds about as happy as I am right now, and just waste away my time as I write notes about shit that we've already been taught before. That's another thing. We were repeatedly taught the exact same stuff with the exact same slideshow multiple times. I cannot count the amount of times we were taught what rule of thirds was. But yeah, virtual lessons were so fucking bad, especially at the start when the teachers didn't have a fucking clue what they were doing. Barely anyone turned up, obviously, because there was no punishment for not turning up. And when they did turn up, it was just like 30 minutes of our teacher just kind of sitting there with like a bitrate of like 0.1 on his webcam, and his like screen share was like the lowest frame rate, and it was like always like 5 seconds behind, sometimes more than 5 seconds behind. It was just a complete mess. I don't think I learned anything from any of those virtual lessons. They were just a complete waste of my time. With all this in mind, one of my teachers decided it would be a better idea to do like YouTube live streams. I don't know why he thought that was a good idea. My other teacher had the genius idea to do video recordings, which was slightly smarter than the live streams. But it still wasn't much of an improvement over the Teams meetings, because at least in a Teams meeting, I can hop in a Discord chat with my mates and just rip the piss out of it. At least in a Teams meeting, I can hop straight onto Microsoft Teams and burst out laughing when my teacher puts on his webcam and he's fucking bald. I fucking scream laughed when I turned on that Teams meeting, and he looked like he was a prisoner. I don't know what went through his mind that he thought that was a good look, but it really wasn't. I'm so sorry, sir. That was... no. Probably the worst thing about the Teams meetings was in, like, the third lockdown, sorry. One of my teachers got the genius idea, absolute fucking evil idea, to start using breakout rooms, which is where you're just kind of sorted automatically into, like, smaller rooms with just 2 or 3 of you in there. He's calling me again. Hey bro, thoughts on Teams meetings?
No, William, we're talking about boxing.
If you don't know what a breakout room is, it's where you're automatically sorted. All of the members of the group are sorted into 2-person mini meetings, where my teacher used to do like pair up activities. Bear in mind, half of the people in my course I've literally never spoken to, and for someone like me who has awful social anxiety, that was hell. So thanks for that one. Thank you for that one, sir. Gave me a bunch of cool panic attacks. Really loved that part of the course. That was sick. Even once we managed to actually get back to college in September, there was still obviously a lot of stuff that was drastically different. Like, we had to wear masks now, obviously, and we had to wash our hands whenever we walked into a classroom or into the college itself. But the thing that pissed me off, and pissed basically everyone off, was the genius one-way system that my college came up with, which was atrocious. Now, one-way systems, they make sense in theory. Like, you're splitting up the population so they don't clash and spread all their yucky, icky germs. It's a good idea. But I think logistically, they didn't think much further than we need a one-way system to look like we're doing something. Because the one-way system was so badly designed and so ineffective that people just ignored it. So, in a sense, you've just achieved nothing. That's all you've done. You've just wasted my time. Let's say you were sitting like 5 meters away from where our lesson was. Let's say, in theory, you couldn't just walk that 5 meters back to lesson. You had to go all the way around the college in a big loop. So instead of just taking the 10 seconds to walk back to lesson, 5-minute walk. Which meant that barely anyone followed the system because it was just a complete waste of time and didn't achieve anything. At one point, they changed the arrows for the one-way system to be a completely different way, which just completely defeated the point of the one-way system because there were some people who had muscle memory for walking one way round, so you had people clashing constantly. You've achieved nothing. You've fucking achieved nothing. Like, even the fucking toilets had a one-way system. Why? Speaking of toilets, actually, for like a few weeks, they also closed some of the toilets. Like, they had like gaps between the toilets. Why? There is a wall between each cubicle. I don't think COVID can pass through walls. So what are you achieving beyond just making the queue for the toilet longer? Which just means that people are standing in an enclosed space longer. Which means that you're spreading the virus more. Which means that... What was the point? What was the point? Some genius also had the idea to put glass panels between each of the Macs in our classroom. Again, on paper that sounds like it makes sense. In practice, the glass panels didn't extend beyond the desk. So what were they protecting? I don't sit in the desk, I sit, you know, a bit beyond it. So there wasn't any glass between me and my friends. Were you protecting the Macs? Did the Macs have COVID? Probably the worst COVID protocol that my college had was the restrictions on eating and drinking in the college. They never specified this. It was like an unspoken rule. But you were only meant to eat in like 2 sections of the college. You could only eat in the cafeteria and outside, where anything goes outside, like fucking anything. You can fucking smooch people, it doesn't fucking matter. You weren't allowed to eat in any of the corridors or in any of the other atrium areas. You could only eat in those specific areas. Apparently, following this phantom rule that is not on any section of like the COVID guidelines of the college, is just like this magic rule that just appeared one day. The problem with that absolutely genius idea is that cramming 2,000 people over the space of an hour into, I'd say, like 100 seats total is not feasible. Because there will always be people who are sitting down, there will always be people who take 50 minutes to eat their lunch. That just won't work. But even if you did have the people who were like constantly moving out and it had enough time to fit everyone in there, it still wouldn't work because everyone taking off their mask in one spot will just spread COVID. What are you achieving? What the fuck are you achieving? But even if all of these like protocols like worked and the college was 100% COVID secure, which it wasn't, you constantly heard about COVID cases in college, it would still be all pointless because the second you left college, you just get on a bus that is fucking crammed full of people. And that brings me right on to the transport, which was not good. It was not good. Traveling 2 hours there and then another 2 hours back was fucking miserable. And I had to do that every single day I went in. Because I live in the middle of nowhere, and I, for unknown reasons, picked the college that was the furthest away from me, because it was like the only good one that offered the course I wanted. Yeah, waking up in the morning at like 6:30 to get a bus at 7:30 to get in college at 9:30. Yeah, I would have traded places with someone in a fucking heartbeat. You know, on the plus side, gave me a lot of time to listen to the same Spotify playlist over and over again. The problem was, after COVID had happened and virtual teaching had happened, and I'd seen how, you know, possible it was to like do the course at home, especially once I'd actually like got some of my own equipment, was that suddenly going into college lost all meaning. Because suddenly I was thinking, well, why am I going into college when I could feasibly do all of this at home and still get a fucking distinction? In the second year in particular, I started to skive a lot. Not because I didn't want to learn or I didn't want to do the course. I still was very engaged with it. It's just, what's the point of me going in when I could do it all at home? And half the time my computer ran better than the fucking Macs did. So, like, I could be more efficient here as well. On top of all that, with the transport, ignoring like the 2 hour long fucking back and forth and the £7 price tag, you also had a bunch of other issues, especially in the first year, because the bus company that was running that bus route was they didn't really do their job very well. I don't think they ever inspected those first year buses, because they broke down pretty consistently, or had some issue with them. I got a bunch of free rides because the ticket machine or the printing machine just didn't work. There was one time in February of last year where the bus broke down in the middle of nowhere. We were told by the bus driver, oh, there'll be a replacement within like 20 minutes. The replacement turned up an hour later. My toes were fucking ice blocks by the end. And I got into college an hour and a half late. So that was cool. I didn't miss a whole lot. The second year was a lot better. It didn't break down nearly as much. But the issue this time was that it was pretty frequently quite late. And also, they used my bus route as like a training ground for new bus drivers. I don't know why, considering that bus company mainly did like city buses. And this was like the one bus route they did that went to the middle of nowhere. But that meant that very frequently the bus drivers didn't have a fucking clue where they were going. And that made us very late. So thank you, bus company that I cannot name. Very cool. I've already said this already, but the buses were frequently crammed to their breaking point. And I frequently had to stand. There was one time I almost fell on a fucking child, so that was cool. I have got one very specific bus story I want to tell that isn't really related to anything else. I just wanted to tell it. I get two buses. I've got to get one to the middle of the town where my college is, and then get another bus to the college, which is like 20 minutes. And we were getting on that one. Me and my friends were like the first to get on this bus, and we were just sitting at the back. And one of my friends who just got off his bus was talking to us about this woman that had been on his. He described her as someone who just sat at the front, right at the front, and just talked to the bus driver non-stop for like 30 minutes about nothing in particular. And the bus driver just got progressively more and more mad. And lo and behold, as he was describing this very funny story, the same woman got on our bus, and I was just like, uh-oh. This time she didn't talk to the bus driver for like 2 hours. Instead, she walked to like the first seat on the bus, which someone was already sitting in. But there was a seat free beside them. She didn't want that seat. She wanted the seat that the student was sitting in. So she just started shouting at this one student and got progressively more and more mad when the student wouldn't move, even though there was many more free seats around her that she could have taken. She wanted that seat. And then she was just like, after like 5 minutes of screaming, she just got off the bus and just told the bus driver, sorry, this kid wouldn't fucking move. There's a couple other things I want to talk about. I know this video's already gone on for like way too long. But there's a couple other things that didn't really fit into any other section that I just want to mention. We were all assigned a progress tutor at college, which is essentially like a manager that we were given, who just was meant to like talk to us and like make sure we weren't like depressed or anything, and like help us when we applied to uni. And he was also meant to do like lessons like PSHE lessons essentially, where he just went through like a topic like every 2 weeks. He didn't do any of that. I don't know if this was like a hidden college policy where the tutors would only do one-to-ones with students who do need them, but he just never like invited us to a one-to-one. I know we were meant to do one-to-ones because when we went into into lockdown, he like gave us digital one-to-ones, which weren't even like a fucking Microsoft Teams meeting. It was a fucking Google form that we just had to fill in and send to him. And we never got anything back. So instead of it being a one-to-one, it was a one. And for the PSHE knockoff that we were meant to do, which was meant to just be like a 20-minute long session where we stayed behind at the end of one of our lessons every 2 weeks and just get taught about, like, I don't know, staying safe online. We did that twice total. The first one, he sped through it as fast as possible because most people had already left because they just didn't want to do it. And then the second one we did, I can't even remember what that was, but that was a full one. And then after that, we didn't do any more. We did some in the second year, but those were different. Those were like a babysitting session where he was like, yeah, so like go on UCAS and like sign up for uni. He didn't really do a whole lot. He just sat at the front. He didn't really do his job, really. Like, honestly, I think I've only talked to him once. Like, had an actual conversation with him once. And he was my assigned progress tutor. So, that's cool. That's really sick. We also had a bunch of like IT problems at the college. I know we had like an IT department, like a dedicated IT department that was meant to solve all these issues, but they very rarely did their job. I think that was a bit of a theme going throughout the college. There was so many fucking minor and kind of large problems that were just never resolved. Like, this is a really nitpicky thing, but in like towards the end of the second year of college, the Mac started displaying like an error message where it was like, oh, that your free trial has ended for like a security software, and you couldn't like dismiss it. You just had to put it in a corner. And at one point they did solve it after like 4 weeks, and then we came back after like a half term, and it was still broken. But the date for the expiry had just changed. So did they get another free trial? I don't fucking know. Like, also the sign-in system was really shit. I think it was better on the normal PCs, because I think they put more effort into making that function. But on the Macs we had, you had to sign in with like your student ID as like an email and your password, which you had to change for some reason in the first year every few weeks, but you didn't have to do that in the second year. I don't fucking know. It was weird. It was backwards. But yeah, the sign-in system, you had to sign in once to sign into the Mac, obviously. Then you had to sign into each program individually with the exact same login. But each time you did that, so let's say I was signing into Google, I had to sign into the Google sign-in, and then that took me to another sign-in page to sign in again. And I had to do that for like 4 separate programs every single time I turned on the Mac. So at the start of every lesson, there was like 10 minutes dedicated to just signing into everything and like loading up the slides and loading up all the programs. Speaking of the Macs, in the first year they were fine. They weren't anything special, but they functioned and they could run the programs pretty well. In the second year, I briefly overheard 2 of the teachers talking about how the Macs need to be replaced and how, oh, they're running fine, it's fine, we'll just leave them another year. And then like a week after they had that conversation, the Macs started slowing down. You couldn't have an Adobe program open without them like stuttering. It was awful. You honestly, if you had 2 Adobe programs open, the entire thing would be like a slideshow. It was awful.
Hi everyone, Editor Sparkie here. As I was in the process of editing this behemoth of a video, I got a message, well, multiple messages from one of my friends who is doing the same course but the year below me. Apparently the Macs have stopped working completely because they installed an update, apparently, and that broke all of them. So he's been going into college every day for a week and they just won't work. So, really good job on that one. That's just a really, you did really well there.
Moving on to the toilets now. Unfortunately, there were no Pringles cans in these ones. The doors actually worked. That was pretty cool. And there wasn't like massive shits that were left in them. They were clean. They were kept clean. And I could reliably use them without getting a disease. There were two little things. One of them is a bigger problem. One of them is just a little nitpick. They had like posters up in every toilet. This isn't even a nitpick. This is just a thing I liked. They were like constantly defaced. There was one of them that had like signposts that point. Each signpost points towards your future, and one of them was like really crudely done. And someone had just drawn like a circle around it and said like F-. The other bigger issue was that the water taps, specifically in the toilet that was outside of where my lesson usually was, the water taps in there were just fucked. All the other toilets in the college were completely fine, at least the ones that I used. They sprayed water at such a velocity that it just went fucking everywhere. That wasn't the worst part though. The water came out boiling. At one point, they had plumbers in there. Those toilets were like closed off, and I was like, holy shit, they're actually fixing the sinks. No, they were fixing the one tap that had gone like dribbly, but because it like broken slightly, you could actually use it reliably because it wasn't boiling hot anymore and it actually came out at like a decent velocity. They fixed it to make it worse again. The final thing I just want to briefly shout out is the co-op trips we went on. There was a co-op near where my college was. It was like a 10-minute walk away, and basically like every other lunchtime we walked down there. And that's just a fun thing. But the last co-op trip we went up there, and I just sat outside because it's COVID and I wasn't going to go in and buy anything. One of my friends was taking longer than usual to come out, and he walked out with a light bulb and just handed it to me and said, "Oh, this is so you can get ideas for your videos." I still don't know why he did this, but I just wanted to mention it. He bought me a fucking light bulb. It doesn't even fit my lights, so thanks, mate. That's really cool. Last bit of squash. And I think that's everything I wanted to talk about. So I guess I've got to do a conclusion now. College was good. I know I said at the end of school review that, high school actually had such an impact on me, and it was so, I love, everyone I met was so funny and lit, and it was so good and cool. That was a lie. I lied to myself for a year. I lied to myself for 5 years, actually, that high school was good. It wasn't good. It was fucking awful. It probably had more of an impact on my mental health than anything else. Honestly, anything would have looked good in comparison to how shit high school was, but I mean this time. This isn't me lying to myself. College was really good. I got a lot out of it. I learned a hell of a lot at college, and I met some really cool people. Here's a picture of them. And I made some really cool stuff I'm really proud of, stuff I'd be happy to have in a portfolio that I wouldn't have if I, did fucking film studies. There's also some things that I would like to distance myself as far away as possible from, but we don't talk about those ones. We don't fucking mention those. And as many issues that I did have with college, however minor, however big, I wouldn't change it for the world. That was a direct quote. So, for the last time, to my teachers, to my friends, to my peers who I never spoke to the IT guys who didn't do their job, to my tutor who didn't do his job, to the bus drivers who very crudely attempted to do their jobs, to the cleaners who actually did a very good job. I'm proud of you on that one. Thank you for making the last 2 years of my life worthwhile. Also, Alistair, if you're watching this, please watch Hoover Review. I'm begging you.
Hey guys, I'd just like to give a quick shout out to my friend Alex, who drank a litre of apple juice in one go. Fuck you.